Massassi warriors. The Massassi were the shock troops of the ancient Sith Empire during the Great Hyperspace War. They were deployed by Sith Lord Naga Sadow to overwhelm Jedi and Republic forces head-on. Massassi relied on brute strength and intimidation, wielding alchemically forged swords, pikes, and their signature Lanvaroks, wrist-mounted launchers that fired razor-sharp discs. Their armor, also alchemically reinforced, made them nearly as terrifying to face as the Sith Lords commanding them. They played key roles in the battles of Kirek and Coruscant, smashing through defensive lines and sowing chaos. When the war turned against the Sith, Massassi aboard Sadow's ships murdered the officers of rival Sith Lords, allowing their vassals to be used as decoys during his retreat. A final, brutal act of loyalty. After fleeing to Yavin 4, Sadow used Sith alchemy to mutate the remaining Massassi into monstrous, hunched forms. Centuries later, Exar Kun enslaved those mutated survivors as laborers and temple guardians before draining their life force in a dark ritual. By the end of the Old Republic era, the Massassi had vanished from the galactic battlefields, but their legacy lived on. They were the original model for dark side shock troops. Krath fanatics. The Krath were a dark side cult that seized control of the Empress Teta system around 3997 BBY. Led by cousins Alima and Satal Kito, the Krath launched a crusade backed by alchemical magic, war droids, and a loyal army of indoctrinated soldiers. Krath troops were fiercely devoted, trained to fight not just with weapons but with rituals. They wore holy battle armor and operated from dark-side temples infused with Sith energy. At the Battle of Deneba, Krath war droids disguised as service units ambushed the Jedi Conclave, killing many, most notably Master Arkajeth. The cult's military grew stronger when Ulic Keldroma infiltrated their ranks, killed Satal, and became their warlord. With support from Mandalore the Indomitable, the Krath campaign surged until Exar Kun arrived, united the Sith, and consumed the movement into the larger Brotherhood of the Sith. Internal betrayals and Alima's supernova stunt in the Kron cluster collapsed the Krath war machine, but their fusion of occult fanaticism and battlefield tactics left a lasting mark on the dark side. Sith troopers. The Sith Empire under Revan and Malak fielded a massive military machine during the Jedi Civil War. At its core were Sith troopers, non-force-sensitive infantry clad in faceless silver armor deployed across the galaxy in coordinated strikes. Most came from defected Republic units, soldiers who followed Revan out of loyalty or disillusionment, and volunteers from newly conquered worlds. Trained under Sith military doctrine and backed by Dark Jedi commanders, these troops struck fast and hit hard, crushing resistance with overwhelming numbers and coordinated force. During the war, all Sith troopers carried Sith assault guns and Sith sniper rifles for ranged combat, along with stun batons, vibroblades, and occasionally Sith energy shields. Their armor showed no visible sign of rank markings on the standard suit. Their gear was mass-produced via the Starforge, allowing for rapid scaling of weapons, armor, ships, and droids to support the war effort. On planets like Taurus and Dantooine, their presence alone signaled occupation was inevitable. After Malak's defeat at Rakata Prime, many battalions refused to disband, and some joined the Sith Triumvirate's forces, while others resurfaced in later conflicts such as the New Sith Wars. Republic troopers. The Galactic Republic Army during the Old Republic era was a unified force of professional soldiers, planetary militia units, and local security forces brought under central command during times of war. Its troops fought across dozens of systems in conflicts like the Great Sith War and the Mandalorian Wars. Republic soldiers were typically equipped with mid to heavy composite armor, plated suits with sealed helmets and HUD interfaces. Variants differed by unit and region, but most prioritized infantry flexibility without sacrificing battlefield durability. Standard issue weapons included blaster rifles, pistols, and squad-level repeaters, with heavier ordnance deployed during planetary invasions. They served alongside Jedi generals and naval support, acting as ground assault units, defensive garrisons, and planetary peacekeepers. On worlds like Sirocco and Onderon, they held positions against Sith warlords and Mandalorian shock troops, often with high casualties. After the Jedi Civil War, the Senate began a long re-equipment program that culminated 3 centuries later when the post-Treaty of Coruscant Republic army became a tightly centralized, professional force built to counter the resurgent Sith. Zakuulan conscripts. Zakuulan conscripts were the non-Force-sensitive backbone of the Eternal Empire's army. Ordinary citizens drafted into service after Valkorion revealed Zakuul to the wider galaxy 3,636 years before the Battle of Yavin. They made up the organic half of the ground forces, working alongside the mass-produced Sky Trooper legions. Conscripts served as line infantry, tasked with holding ground, guarding shield generators, and securing bunkers, while Sky Troops executed high-speed aerial assaults. They were rarely deployed without Knights of Zakuul present, who handled command and coordination on the battlefield. Command hierarchy placed conscripts under the Eternal Empire's officer corps, but operational control always rested with the Force-sensitive Knights. These elite commanders made tactical decisions in the field, while conscripts executed orders and held formation. Standard gear included white and gold laminate armor with integrated HUDs and mass-produced conscript rifles or assault cannons. Following Captain Fortenna's refusal to fire on civilians at Denon, defections within the ranks increased, leading to a shift toward a droid-dominant force soon after. Sith Assassins. After the Jedi Civil War, the shattered Sith Empire reformed under Darths Traya, Nihilus, and Sion, a loose triumvirate with few conventional troops, but a deadly network of assassins and marauders. Sith assassins were trained to detect and target Jedi, using dark-side techniques to suppress their presence in the Force until the moment of attack. Most operated in small, coordinated cells, favoring ambush tactics and close-quarters engagements. Rather than face Republic forces head-on, they focused on capturing or killing isolated Jedi. Their gear emphasized mobility and concealment over armor, and their strength increased by feeding on the Force signatures of their victims. In battles like Telos IV and Onderon, they worked alongside Sith troopers and served as shock infiltration teams, disrupting enemy command and striking high-value targets. Under the Triumvirate, they became the primary force behind the Jedi Purge, used to isolate and eliminate targets across the galaxy. Jedi Warriors. Across millennia, the Jedi Order has repeatedly set aside its monastic traditions to take up arms whenever the Republic, or the galaxy itself, faced an existential threat. In the distant past, temple sentinels on worlds like Tython and Ossus guarded holocrons and sacred sites with reinforced robes and early lightsaber forms. When the Sith first rose, ad hoc vanguard units spearheaded lightning raids on enemy strongholds, while temporary Crusader orders hunted down marauding forces with hit-and-run precision. This pattern continued through the Mandalorian Wars, where Revan's revanchists donned armor plating over their robes to fight alongside Republic battalions, and into the Clone Wars, when Jedi generals led clone legions into pitched battles across hundreds of worlds. After Order 66, hidden cells of survivors waged shadow wars against the Empire, keeping the Jedi spark alive. In the new Jedi Order era, small vanguard teams boarded alien dreadnoughts, and Luke Skywalker's Praxium trainees blended lightsaber drills with guerrilla tactics. Even in the far future legacy conflicts, when Darth Krayt's one Sith clashed with fledgling Jedi, that same willingness to break from tradition and arm Force sensitives as warriors proved critical time and time again. Mandalorian Crusaders and Neo-Crusaders. The Mandalorian Crusaders were nomadic warrior clans active through the Great Sith War, with tradition stretching back to around 7000 BBY. Led by Mandalore the Indomitable, these clans operated as shock troops and mercenaries, drawn to battle wherever glory could be found. They raided worlds like Empress Teta and engaged Jedi forces directly, favoring jetpack flanking strikes, heavy vibroblades, and explosive projectiles. Their decentralized structure allowed for fast strikes but poor coordination. Each clan acted autonomously, often competing for spoils, which made long-term occupation unsustainable. Despite their ferocity, they failed to hold territory during Exar Kun's war and fractured after Mandalore the Indomitable's death on Duxon. Decades later, Mandalore the Ultimate reformed the fractured warrior culture into a united force, the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders. Abandoning tribal disunity, he imposed a rigid hierarchy and standardized combat doctrine. Warriors were organized into armor-coded ranks, blue for rank-and-file soldiers, red for rally masters, and gold for field marshals. Under the leadership of Cassius Fett, the Neo-Crusaders expanded rapidly, recruiting non-Mandalorian species and enforcing discipline across all clans. Their blitzkrieg tactics, mass planetary assaults with orbital support, broke through Republic lines in the Mandalorian Wars. Eventually, Revan shattered the Neo-Crusader war machine at Malachor V, but the survivors regrouped under Mandalore the Preserver, who later allied with the Republic during the Onderon Civil War, an iconic reversal for a warrior culture once bent on its own destruction. Mandalorian mercenaries. After their defeat at Malachor V, the once unified Mandalorian war machine fractured. With no ruling Mandalore and no central army, many surviving warriors became mercenaries, scattered across the Outer Rim and selling their skills to planetary militias, warlords, or criminal syndicates. These post-war Mandalorians retained their combat traditions and heavy armor, often fighting as elite shock troops or bounty hunters. Some followed their own codes, taking contracts selectively, while others pursued profit or personal vendettas without loyalty to any cause. Around 3,951 years before the Battle of Yavin, a number of Mandalorian veterans regrouped under Mandalore the Preserver on Duxon. Under his leadership, they began rebuilding, sometimes assisting the Republic, as seen during the Onderon Civil War. Throughout the Old Republic era, Mandalorians continued to appear in conflicts across the galaxy. They remained a feared presence right up until the Galactic War era, when a new Mandalore finally reunited them once more. After the Old Republic era, Mandalorian mercenaries never truly faded. They simply reformed. In the years leading to the galaxy-wide conflict, Jango Fett sold his unparalleled skills to the highest bidder and became the living template for the Republic's clone army, while his unaltered son, Boba Fett, carried Mandalore's legacy through the turmoil of the Empire, forging a reputation as one of its most feared hunters. In the New Republic era, lone mercenaries like Din Djarin upheld the Mandalorian creed across the Outer Rim, proving that from ancient councils to solitary hunters, Mandalorian warriors have endured as the galaxy's preeminent armored professionals. Onderonian Beast Riders. The Beast Riders of Onderon began as outcasts, criminals and dissidents exiled into the deadly jungles beyond Iziz by a monarchy corrupted by Sith influence. Expected to die to the wild beasts of Duxon, these exiles instead learned to tame them, especially the Drexel, massive flying predators. In time, they formed militant warbands, launching attacks against Iziz from the skies. During the Beast Wars of 4000 BBY, the Riders, now organized under Beast Lord Kinch Sunka, waged open war against the city. Their Drexel-mounted cavalry proved fast, unpredictable, and highly effective in urban sieges. When Princess Galia allied with the Riders through marriage, a temporary peace was struck. The Beast Riders later fought alongside Jedi and Republic forces during the Freedom Nad Uprising and repelled Mandalorians during the Great Sith War. But by the Mandalorian Wars, they were overrun, many killed, others reduced to mercenaries or street thugs. By the time of the Onderon Civil War of 3,951 BBY, the once feared Riders had splintered. Their beasts were seen aiding Sith-backed forces, though most surviving Riders likely supported Queen Talia. After the war, their legacy faded into legend. Zerka Corporation Private Military. Zerka Corporation maintained its own private military during the Old Republic era, an armed security force composed of contracted guards, mercenaries, and local enforcers tasked with protecting the company's interests on unstable worlds. These forces functioned as paramilitary units on planets like Kashyyyk, Tatooine, Korriban, and Telos IV. Heavily armed and answerable only to Zerka's regional administrators, they enforced corporate law, suppressed local dissent, and secured assets tied to illegal operations, including slavery and black market trades. On Kashyyyk, Zerka guards were responsible for maintaining the Wookiee slave trade until their position was violently overthrown by a revolt encouraged by Revan. Standard equipment included medium combat armor, blaster rifles, and the occasional prototype weapons straight from Zerka R&D. Morale was enforced through corporate loyalty rather than ideology, though mercenary squads on Telos IV operated with near criminal autonomy, often in league with the Exchange. While not a formal army, Zerka security forces engaged in multiple armed clashes with Republic personnel, Jedi, and local insurgents. Exchange mercenaries. The Exchange Syndicate fielded its own mercenary forces during the Old Republic era, private armies built from smugglers, bounty hunters, and war veterans willing to fight for credits. Unlike corporate security groups, exchange mercs operated with criminal impunity, often functioning as proxy militias for the syndicate's leadership. Some exchange units, notably Azkul's Dantooine force, included former Republic commandos and a handful of Mandalorian veterans, organized into squads with heavy weapons, tactical support, and field leadership. Exchange enforcers also skirmished with the Jedi Exile on Nar Shaddaa, where exchange lieutenants hired Mandalorian bounty hunters. Their tactics were a mix of street-level brutality and paramilitary structure, making them one of the most dangerous criminal forces operating in the galaxy at the time. Hutt Cartel mercenaries. In the early Galactic War, the Hutt Cartel made a rare move into open military occupation, hiring the Interstellar Regulators, a professional mercenary company, to seize and control the planet Makeb. Well-paid and extremely well-equipped, they were among the galaxy's most respected mercenary armies, rivaled by top-tier Mandalorian clans. On Makeb, they acted as the cartel's personal army. Regulator units patrolled urban centers, enforced martial law, secured mining operations, and pushed back resistance from Makeb's native authorities. Their deployments focused on urban pacification, perimeter control, and rapid response strikes against resistance cells. Republic Defense Coalition troopers. In the High Republic era, the Galactic Republic had no standing army. Instead, security operations were handled through sector defense fleets, local forces, and the Republic Defense Coalition, a rapid response framework that draws, equips, and coordinates professional responders from member worlds to assist Jedi operations across the frontier. Coalition units could be deployed under Jedi authority to respond to disasters, conflicts, and external threats. Visual depictions show them in light, mobile equipment, blast armor, crowd control gear, medkits, and transport shuttles built for flexibility in fast-moving situations. Often seen alongside Jedi Knights during missions, RDC detachments help protect relief convoys, secure evacuation zones, and support planetary governments during crises, most notably after the Valo attack and in later Nihil engagements. Nihil Marauders. The Nihil were anarchic raiders who terrorized the Outer Rim during the High Republic era. Operating in loosely organized tempests, these warbands were made up of smugglers, killers, and pirates from dozens of species, united by a shared code of chaos. Nihil Marauders wore scavenged armor reinforced with helmets that incorporated rebreathers, letting them operate in toxic or vacuum conditions, and occasionally deploying knockout gases or other chemical agents. Their ships were heavily modified and guided by stolen hyperspace tech. Rather than wage open war, the Nihil struck through ambushes and planetary raids, hitting civilian targets to spread fear. Their tactics overwhelmed local defenses and forced Jedi and Republic emergency responders into constant crisis response. Eriadu Security Forces. Eriadu's contribution to the Republic Defense Coalition provided one of the few fully professional frontier armies in the High Republic era. At the Battle of Kur in 2032 BBY, an Eriaduan flotilla, including 5 Pacifier-class sector patrol cruisers and RDC infantry detachments, entered the call alongside Jedi and Republic forces. Under Governor Mural Veen's command, Eriadu's forces engaged Nihil Tempest runners as part of the fleet action. Their disciplined maneuvers and rapid response infantry operations helped secure victory in the Kur Nebula, preventing a Nihil breach and safeguarding countless lives. Togruta Military Forces. The Togruta military was the planetary infantry arm under Queen Elarek Yovet's government on Sheely, responsible for defending their world's interests. Their sole documented combat instance occurred during the Nihil assault on the Valo Republic Fair in 231 BBY, when Togruta infantry fought alongside Republic and Jedi forces to secure the fairgrounds. Erom Military Forces. Erom maintained a standing planetary defense under its monarchical government, fielding both a patrol fleet and organized ground troops throughout the High Republic era. Their forces answered calls beyond mere local militias, operating with formal structure and regular training rather than ad hoc levies. Eromi units first appeared in the Erom Erono Crisis, where they supported Jedi Masters Simics and Laret Soveral in recovering kidnapped officials. Later, during the Convergent storyline, Erom's defenders again fought alongside Republic and Jedi forces on their homeworld, providing secure landing zones and escorting civilian convoys. Erono Military Forces. The Erono military forces were the planetary armed service of the Erono monarchy, first mobilized during the Eram and Erono War. Infantry elements fought alongside modified industrial mining loaders requisitioned from the royal company's fleets to hold key passes against the rival Eram clans. In 230 BBY, these same soldiers were redeployed at the Battle of Jeddah, where they again paired foot troops with adapted loader platforms to secure landing zones and protect Republic relief efforts on the Sacred Moon's surface. Drengir. The Drengir were a sentient species of carnivorous plant creatures awakened during the High Republic era and spreading like a plague across frontier space. Operating as a dark-side hive mind, they attacked with overwhelming numbers and regenerative bodies that blaster bolts slowed but couldn't stop. Fire or lightsabers were required for permanent injury. Drengir fought in fast-moving clusters, tangling enemies with barbed tendrils, dragging them into melee, and infecting wounded targets through root contact. Their vines could pierce armor plating, and their bodies reformed rapidly unless limbs were cauterized. These weren't soldiers in any formal sense, but their swarm tactics, telepathic communication, and ability to overrun fortified positions made them one of the most dangerous organic threats of the era. Jedi Knights and Hutt enforcers were forced into direct alliance just to contain the spread. Clone Troopers. The Grand Army of the Republic was a massive military force composed almost entirely of clone troopers, genetically engineered humans bred on Kamino using the template of bounty hunter Jango Fett. Clone infantry wore plastoid armor, often color-coded to unit or rank. Armor variants included specialist kits, each tailored for distinct combat environments. Standard gear included DC-15 blaster rifles or carbines, thermal detonators, and utility belts stocked for long deployments. Clones trained from birth in squad tactics, urban combat, and vehicle operation. They mostly deployed from LAAT gunships, operated alongside ATTE walkers, and frequently fought in tight formation with Jedi generals at the front. Known legions like the 501st, 212th, and 104th earned reputations for adaptability and combat discipline, often deploying in prolonged sieges or surgical strikes. Senate Guard. The Senate Guard was an elite security force composed of non-clone soldiers recruited from loyal Republic worlds. Serving under the Senate's direct authority, they protected senators, diplomats, and the Chancellor himself. Ceremonial guards wore flowing midnight blue robes and plume-topped helmets carrying long-barreled Senate rifles or force pikes. An elite subset, the Senate Commandos, already existed before the Clone Wars, and once it erupted, these commandos upgraded to blue and white plate armor and blaster carbines for shipboarding, VIP escort, and counter-assassination work. Commandos operated in pairs or fire teams, often stationed on Coruscant, diplomatic shuttles, or high-risk convoys. Though few in number, they acted as a parallel force to the Jedi-led Grand Army, one drawn not from Kamino Vats, but from Republic citizens. Royal Naboo Security Forces. The Royal Naboo Security Forces were a trained militia corps tasked with defending Naboo's government and population centers. Composed of professional volunteers, they wore burgundy vests and blue tunic uniforms and carried Naboo-issue blaster pistols and carbines. During the Trade Federation invasion, these forces were heavily outgunned by battle droids, but remained active in underground resistance and city operations. They fought to retake Theed from within, fighting with Jedi and Gungan allies in the ensuing Battle of Naboo. Gungan Grand Army. The Gungan Grand Army was a large, native fighting force drawn from the swamps and underwater cities of Naboo. Armed with electropoles, boomer energy orbs, and personal plasma shields, they deployed in massive open field formations. Infantry advanced behind interlocking shield walls, while cavalry units on Cardu circled the flanks. Larger Fambas followed behind the line, carrying shield generators to deflect blaster fire across a wide area. They proved remarkably effective in their role, holding the front in Naboo against superior firepower with great cohesion, field discipline, and sheer physical resilience. Wookiee Army. The Wookiee Army was Kashyyyk's native defense force during the Clone Wars, organized into city-based militias such as the Kachiro Wookiee Militia, each led by local chieftains like General Tarful and Captain Meru Meru. At the Battle of Kashyyyk in 19 BBY, these warriors fought alongside Yoda's clone battalions and Jedi generals, holding beaches, canopy walkways, and the Roshir route systems against the Separatist droid onslaught. Wookiee fighters wielded traditional weapons, powerful bowcasters, and razor-sharp Rick blades. For rapid insertion, they used Oeva jet catamarans to ferry troops ashore and Rador-Nask fluttercraft gliders to swoop through the treetops. Twi'lek Resistance. The Twi'lek Resistance, later called Free Ryloth, was a homegrown militia led by Cham Syndulla during the Separatist occupation of Ryloth. Formed from local fighters and villagers, the Resistance operated in guerrilla cells across the planet. Armed with scavenger blasters, grenades, and the occasional Republic-supplied weaponry, Twi'lek fighters struck from cover, harassed droid patrols, and sabotaged convoys. Their strength lay in terrain mastery and hit-and-run tactics. Syndulla's leadership kept the militia unified even after losing contact with the Republic. When Mace Windu's clone battalions reached Ryloth, the Resistance joined the final push to liberate the capital Lesu. Fighters advanced alongside clones through ravines and cliffside paths, flanking Separatist armor and overwhelming the city's perimeter. Mandalorian Guards and Journeyman Protectors. The Mandalorian Guards served as the police and public safety force of the new Mandalorian government under Duchess Satine Kryze. These guards wore smooth, light grey armor without the traditional T-visor and carried riot shields, stun batons, and electropoles for non-lethal enforcement. They patrolled Sundari, protected diplomatic envoys, and aided in investigations like the Black Market Slevin scandal. Though Mandalore remained neutral in the Clone Wars, the Guard clashed with Death Watch and later Maul's Shadow Collective, suffering heavy losses during the coup. A separate and more elite unit, the Journeyman Protectors, also called the Royal Guard, were drawn from Mandalore's best warriors to personally safeguard Satine and conduct sensitive missions. They defended her during assassination attempts, aided Jedi like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and later transitioned into the Protectors of Concord Dawn under Fen Rao. These Protectors allied with the rebellion before being nearly wiped out by Gar Saxon's Imperial commandos. Umbaran Militia. The Umbaran Militia was one of the Republic's most formidable opponents in the Clone Wars, drawing on their planet's advanced technology and home field advantage. After seceding to join the Separatists, native Umbarans donned protective combat suits that filtered toxic gases and concealed their forms in Umbara's perpetual gloom. Infantrymen wielded standard-issue Umbaran blaster rifles and deployed lethal milli-creep assassin droids to infiltrate clone lines. They were backed by heavy hover tanks, multi-legged assault tanks, and massive mobile heavy cannons, all optimized for Umbara's swampy terrain. At the Battle of Umbara, militia units used hit-and-run fade ambushes and coordinated strikes under the cover of darkness, inflicting severe losses on clone battalions. Though aligned with the CIS, they deployed no battle droids. Their operations were executed by trained Umbaran soldiers, hardened by their world's harsh conditions. Jabiimi Nationalist Army. The Jabiimi Nationalist Army was a separatist-aligned militia loyal to Alto Stratus and fighting to expel Republic influence from their war-torn Outer Rim world. Supported by the CIS, the Nationalists launched coordinated offensives that decimated clone battalions and overwhelmed Republic defenses. They knew every inch of the battlefield and used that knowledge to encircle Jedi-led units, sever supply lines, and grind the Grand Army down in a prolonged Vietnam-like campaign. Quarren Isolation League. When civil war broke out on Mon Cala, the Quarren Isolation League mobilized native troops to challenge the Republic-backed monarchy. Backed by separatist support but fighting on home turf, these Quarren insurgents launched coordinated underwater assaults, turning coral cities and ocean trenches into active war zones. Quarren fighters wore specialized armor that enhanced deep-sea mobility. Their arsenal included vibro pikes and tridents and CIS-supplied weaponry. Deployed in wide formations, they moved fast and low through kelp forests and reef overhangs, using the murky water as natural concealment. Zygerian Slavers. During the Clone Wars, the Zygerian slave empire made a brutal attempt at resurgence, allying with the Separatists to rebuild their ancient trade in slave labor. Backed by Count Dooku's promises, Queen Mirage Sintel deployed slaver troops to subjugate entire populations, starting with the peaceful Togruta colony on Kiros. Zygerian forces operated like a private army, organic soldiers in light armor armed with electro-whips, stun prods, and neural shock collars designed for mass detainment. Their airships bristled with turbolasers and prisoner cages, doubling as assault platforms and mobile pens. These troops successfully captured Jedi Knights Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Ahsoka Tano, briefly turning the tide in favor of the slavers. The Zygerians served as an auxiliary force to separatist expansion, enslaving entire populations in pursuit of profit and revenge. Geonosian warriors. The Geonosians fielded their own native infantry during the Clone Wars, winged warriors drawn from hive clans beneath the planet's surface. Armed with sonic blasters and natural flight, they attacked in dense, unpredictable swarms. After the first Battle of Geonosis, thousands surged into the Petronaki Arena and surrounding canyons, engaging Jedi and clone forces at close range. Hive guards also fought underground, defending key tunnels and egg chambers against Republic pushes. As a homefront militia, they acted as the Confederacy's primary organic force on Geonosis itself. Mandalorian Protectors. Resurrected during the Clone Wars, the Mandalorian Protectors were an elite commando unit formed by Spar, a rogue clone claiming the title of Mandalore. He recruited 212 warriors, including ex-police officers and Death Watch survivors, forging them into a separatist-aligned strike force. Clad in traditional Mandalorian armor and operating independently of the main CIS droid command, the Protectors specialized in precision raids, demolitions, and high-value target elimination. They launched direct assaults on Republic worlds, including Kamino and New Bornelix, often striking behind enemy lines. Armed with gear such as jetpacks and blaster carbines, they functioned as a separatist all-organic special forces unit. Though they believed they were fighting for Mandalore's future, heavy casualties thinned their ranks. Only 3 survived the war. The unit was later revived under Fen Shaisa during the Galactic Civil War. Miscellaneous local separatist militias. Beyond droids and mercenaries, the Confederacy leaned on planetary militias, irregular forces raised by loyalist governments, guilds, or clans. On Ando, Aqualish rifle squads fortified island outposts and used submerged ambush tactics to repel Republic landing teams, forcing Jedi-led assaults into a brutal stalemate. On Skako and other Techno-Union worlds, native enforcers in sealed pressure suits guarded industrial infrastructure and deployed jamming towers to disrupt clone comms. While rarely seen beyond their home systems, they were ruthless defenders of corporate assets. Overshadowed by battle droids, these local units made their mark through terrain mastery, entrenched positions, and a kind of home field asymmetry that conventional clone tactics struggled to overcome. Miscellaneous local Republic forces. Not all security during the Clone Wars came from clone troopers. Across the Republic, local defense forces stepped up to face insurgents, crime syndicates, and separatist infiltrators. The Coruscant Security Force patrolled the Republic capital's lower levels and Senate District. Officers wore dark uniforms and composite armor, carrying blaster pistols, electrobatons, stun cuffs, and riot shields depending on assignment. They tackled serious underworld threats, from organized crime kingpins to terror cells, and worked alongside clone shock troopers during major incidents. Special operations teams deployed near the Senate Dome during periods of unrest. Corellian security operated as a paramilitary police agency on neutral Corellia. They fielded armored tactical units equipped with blaster pistols and stun restraints. In cities like Coronet, they suppressed sabotage and kept port zones locked down when separatist influence stirred local unrest. The Alderaanian Honor Guard served as palace sentinels and diplomatic escorts on pacifist Alderaan. Dressed in ceremonial armor and crested helmets, they wielded vibro pikes and sidearms as needed. When war reached their system, they helped manage evacuations and protected key figures of the royal family. None of these units were part of the Grand Army, but each stood their ground when conflict came to their doorstep. The Death Watch. The Death Watch was a Mandalorian splinter faction of militant traditionalists who rejected Duchess Satine's pacifist regime. They operated as a nomadic strike force, raiding villages, bombing transports, and executing political targets across the Rim. Led by Pre Vizsla, Death Watch initially accepted support from Count Dooku, including access to separatist droids and funding, but the group relied mainly on its own fighters, trained Mandalorian warriors capable of close-quarters duels, ambushes, and jetpack assault tactics. Fighters deployed in tight fire teams, using vertical terrain and flanking routes to overwhelm clone patrols or rival Mandalorian clans. After breaking with the separatists and Pre Vizsla being killed, Death Watch joined Maul's Shadow Collective. Under Maul's command, they fought a brutal campaign to retake Mandalore, culminating in civil war, clone intervention, and the rise of Imperial rule. The Night Sisters of Dathomir. The Night Sisters were a clan of force-wielding witches native to Dathomir, independent from Republic or Separatists, but pulled into the Clone Wars by revenge and survival. Trained in dark-side magics under Mother Talzin, the Night Sister fighters combined ritual sorcery with guerrilla warfare. Armed with energy bows, bone-forged blades, and smoke concealment cloaks, they moved in silent phalanxes through Dathomir's jungle mist, vanishing and reappearing in bursts of lightning and illusion. During their failed strike on Count Dooku, and later in defense of their village, Night Sisters used hidden fade tactics, channeling the terrain, shadows, and corrupted force to offset overwhelming droid numbers. But Grievous's army eventually overran their lines. The Shadow Collective. The Shadow Collective was a syndicate alliance forged by Maul in the late Clone Wars, combining Black Sun enforcers, Pike foot soldiers, and Death Watch commandos into a single strike force. Black Sun troops deployed with disruptor rifles and heavy armor, while Pike soldiers fought with CC-420 pistols, as well as larger repeating blasters like the T-21 and A-300 and electrostaffs. The Death Watch brought in jetpacks, explosives, and close combat precision. The collective took Mandalore by force, battling loyalist Mandalorians in Sundari's streets during the coup that installed Maul as a ruler. However fractured, the collective functioned as a full-fledged paramilitary force, unified by ambition, not ideology. Hondo Ohnaka's Pirate Gang. Hondo Ohnaka's pirate crew on Florum ran raids, hijacked shipments, and held their own in shootouts with both droids and clones during the war. Armed with blaster pistols, swoop bikes, and makeshift transports, Weequay raiders hit hard and vanished fast. They once captured Count Dooku himself, and later held off General Grievous with the help from Jedi younglings. Whether extorting spice runners or skirmishing near Republic space, they fought like a seasoned mercenary bands. Their tactics were messy, but still effective. Small unit ambushes, flexible retreat paths, and opportunistic strikes. While not backed by a galactic power, Hondo's gang wasn't to be reckoned with. Alliance Special Forces. The Rebel Alliance fielded specialized ground units known collectively as Alliance Special Forces, or Spec Force. These included commandos, saboteurs, pathfinders, and infiltrators trained for high-risk planetary ops. Pathfinder units were inserted ahead of major strikes to scout terrain, disable defenses, and coordinate landings. During the Battle of Endor, they fought alongside Ewok allies to overrun the shield bunker, carrying lightweight blasters, demo charges, and survival packs for extended ops behind enemy lines. In Legends, these troops were backed by a formal Alliance army with ranked structure, supply lines, and regular infantry regiments. In canon, Rebel ground forces were looser, built from sector militias, defectors, and volunteers, but still operated with discipline when the mission demanded it. Phoenix Cell. Phoenix Cell was a rebel militia operating in the Lothal sector under Commander Jun Sato. Formed as part of a loose resistance network supported by Bail Organa and Ahsoka Tano, it later grew into a full strike group known as Phoenix Squadron. The Cell's starfighter forces flew A-wings and retrofitted blockade runners, supporting hit-and-run missions against Imperial convoys and garrisons. Infantry detachments were rare, but included elements like the Ghost Crew, Spectre Team, who handled sabotage, infiltration, and exfil under fire. Phoenix operatives wore mismatched gear, flak vests, scout armor plates, and repainted helmets. Missions were improvised but fast-moving, supported by Sato's carrier and Fulcrum Intel. They played a key role in the transition from isolated cells to a unified rebel military, fighting well before the Alliance had an army. Saw Gerrera's Partisans. Saw Gerrera's partisans were a militant insurgent faction that broke from the main rebel alliance over tactical and ideological differences. Built around Saw's leadership, the partisans waged guerrilla warfare against the Empire. Operating in cells, they moved light and hit hard, ambushing convoys, rigging explosives, and using mines or booby traps in the dense terrain. Fighters wore scavenged armor, masks, and rebreathers, often carrying portable explosives, slug throwers, or blasters modified for close quarters combat. Their methods alienated many, but they were highly effective. Enfy's Nest Cloud Riders. The Cloud Riders were a swoop gang with a rebel heart, led by Enfy's Nest and active around 10 BBY. Outfitted like raiders, they moved in fast packs of swoop bikes, hitting Imperial transports and Syndicate convoys for fuel, weapons, and information. Their gear was mismatched with rebreather masks, bandoliers, reinforced jackets, and melee gear adapted for high-speed hit-and-fade tactics. Their primary strike came on Savareen, where they stole an entire coaxium shipment from Crimson Dawn and the Empire, reallocating it to early rebel networks. Though small, the Cloud Riders blurred the line between pirates and insurgents, striking from the margins and vanishing into the wind. Stormtroopers. The Imperial Stormtrooper Corps formed the Empire's core infantry force, armored troops deployed across countless worlds to enforce order, crush dissent, and secure battlefronts. Answering directly to Imperial High Command, Stormtroopers operated outside the regular Navy and Army chains, acting as both shock troops and occupation forces. Troopers wore white plastoid composite armor over black bodysuits, equipped with helmet HUDs, built-in comlinks, and polarized visors. Standard kit included the E-11 blaster carbine, thermal detonators, and utility belts, carrying power packs, rations, and binders. Units varied by environment. Cold assault troopers on Hoth, swamp-trained scouts on Mimban, or flame troopers in urban crackdowns. Deployed in squads of 10, they fought in tight formation, prioritizing overwhelming firepower over direct advances. On patrol, they acted as intimidation units, marching through settlements or manning checkpoints. On the battlefield, they dropped in from orbit aboard transports and deployed fast, often supported by walkers or airspeeders. The Emperor's Royal Guards. The Emperor's Royal Guards were handpicked from the deadliest combatants in the galaxy, selected not just for combat skill but for absolute loyalty. Clad in crimson robes and crested helmets, these warriors stood as Palpatine's personal shield, posted at his side or flanking the throne in utter silence. They trained with force pikes and advanced close quarters technique, capable of striking down enemies before a blaster could clear a holster. Most guardsmen were former shock troopers or special forces, hardened by frontline duty and retrained for precision melee defense. Though rarely deployed in battle, they were feared throughout the ranks. Legends further expands their legacy, noting that some later became sovereign protectors or covert agents known as the Emperor's Hands. Compnor. Comp Force troopers were the boots on the ground enforcers of the Empire's most fanatical political wing, Compnor. Unlike stormtroopers, these weren't cloned or career soldiers, they were civilians turned to zealots, indoctrinated through Compnor's youth programs and loyal to Imperial ideology above all else. Comp Force units operated as political paramilitaries, guarding Compnor facilities, policing dissent, and even joining frontline actions under ISB oversight. Their ranks were split between observation and assault, with many deployed to suppress subversive elements on restive worlds. They weren't the most skilled troops, but what they lacked in finesse, they made up for in sheer ideological aggression. Bespin Wingguard. The Bespin Wingguard served as Cloud City's primary security force, uniformed police and peacekeepers drawn from the city's human and Ugnaught population. Under Baron Administrator Lando Calrissian, they patrolled upper platforms, managed traffic control, and maintained internal order aboard the gas mining colony. Clad in navy blue uniforms, Wingguards carried blaster pistols and stun batons. During Darth Vader's occupation of the city, the Guard was ordered to assist Imperial personnel, securing corridors and escorting officers under Imperial watch. In Legends, when Lendo broke with the Empire, many wing guards defied orders and turned their weapons on Imperial troops, helping drive them out and aiding civilian evacuations as the city fell into chaos. Ewok tribes. The Ewoks of Endor fielded a tribal militia drawn from various forest clans. Though not a formal military, these indigenous warriors played a decisive role in the Battle of Endor. After encountering the rebel strike team, Ewok leaders rallied their hunters to join the fight. Ewok fighters used spears, slings, stone axes, and nets, alongside improvised siege tools like logfall traps and gliders. Familiar with Endor's dense terrain, they launched ambushes from trees, set tripwires, and targeted scout walkers with makeshift countermeasures. Some warriors rode gliders to harass AT-STs from above, while others swarmed foot patrols using sheer numbers and hidden fade tactics. Despite their primitive gear, Ewok units proved capable of disrupting Imperial coordination, creating openings that allowed the rebels to destroy the shield generator. Their contribution was a key factor in the ground victory that led to the fall of the second Death Star. The Black Sun Syndicate. The Black Sun Syndicate was one of the galaxy's most powerful and enduring criminal syndicates, operating with a corporate-like structure under the leadership of regional Vigos. At its peak, under Prince Xizor, the Syndicate controlled a vast network of smugglers, saboteurs, mercenaries, and assassins, rivaling even the Empire's influence in certain sectors. The Black Sun embedded itself deeply in galactic infrastructure through shell companies and corrupt officials. Its operatives engaged in racketeering, illegal weapon sales, and espionage, targeting both Imperial and Rebel-aligned systems when it suited their interests. The organization's ability to operate above and below the law made it a formidable force, with interests stretching from core world's finance to Outer Rim smuggling routes. Enforcers typically wore sleek, dark armor and carried out missions with lethal precision. Elite guards received training in assassination, infiltration, and urban warfare, protecting high-ranking Vigos and executing high-risk operations with cold efficiency. The Pike Syndicate. The Pike Syndicate was a powerful, spice-running cartel based on Obadiah, known for its brutal grip on Kessel's spice mines and a sprawling web of smuggling routes across the galaxy. Their wealth and influence stemmed from controlling distribution networks of raw spice, one of the most valuable and addictive substances in the galaxy. The Pikes were known for their secrecy, preferring masked intermediaries and puppet operators when conducting business. Their inner circle remained elusive, while their lower-tier enforcers dealt with rivals, debt collection, and route protection. Despite their understated presence in the public eye, the Syndicate's reach extended into major trade routes and underworld alliances. Pike foot soldiers were easily recognizable, tall, masked figures in layered robes and reinforced armor. They carried standard blaster rifles and worked in security teams that enforced order in spice facilities, defended convoys, and intimidated dissidents through calculated violence rather than open warfare. The Zan Consortium. The Zan Consortium emerged in the wake of the Battle of Yavin under crime lord Tiber Zan, who leveraged a network of mercenary cells and pirate crews to carve out a third power in the Outer Rim. Zan contracted mercenary cells and elite slicer droids to sabotage convoys and carve out influence in the Outer Rim, using rapid hit-and-run tactics to evade retaliation. Under the cover of black market pacts with minor crime lords, his network briefly coerced independent worlds into funneling resources through consortium routes, until a combined New Republic intelligence offensive unraveled Zan's web, leaving a fractured underworld legacy that persisted. New Republic Defense Forces. The New Republic Defense Force was built from the Rebel Alliance's surviving ground units and pilots, forming the peacekeeping military of the post-Imperial galaxy. In canon, the force was kept small, functioning more as a response corps than a standing army. In Legends, however, the New Republic maintained a larger, organized military with dedicated army divisions and starfighter squadrons. New Republic soldiers wore practical combat gear adapted from Rebel stockpiles. Infantry squads patrolled volatile sectors, guarded senatorial envoys, and deployed to repel warlord uprisings and criminal cartels. Officers often rose from veteran rebel ranks, bringing field-tested leadership to a new institutional force. Planetary forces. Not all military muscle in the post-Imperial galaxy came from the New Republic. On Naboo, the Royal Security Forces were reactivated during Operation Cinder. These troops, outfitted with ceremonial armor and blaster rifles, defended Theed and its surrounding plains from Imperial retaliation. In the unknown regions, the Chiss Defense Force was known to be precise, secretive, and loyal only to the Chiss Ascendancy. Clad in dark, utilitarian gear and armed with advanced plasma weaponry, Chiss troops operated in tight formations, often under officers like Thrawn himself. These forces reflect the variety of planet-based militaries, distinct in look and method, but all shaped by their own culture and strategic needs. Imperial Remnant Factions. After the Battle of Endor, the Empire fractured, but not all of its troops surrendered. Dozens of regional warlords seized command of surviving stormtrooper units, ISB operators, and naval assets, forming Imperial remnants that resisted the New Republic across the galaxy. These remnants varied in size and doctrine. Some, like Grand Admiral Thrawn's forces, mobilized entire fleets and clone-supported armies. Others, like Moff Gideon's remnant, operated as elite garrisons, stormtroopers, dark troopers, and loyal officers embedded in fortified strongholds. Standard gear remained: E-11 rifles, stormtrooper armor, and TIE escorts for troop transports. Lacking a unifying emperor, these groups splintered into competing regimes. Yet, on many worlds, they continued to enforce martial rule, raid Republic outposts, and launch tactical strikes long after the main empire. Zinj's forces. Warlord Zinj commanded a loyal fighting force drawn from defected Imperials, mercenaries, and loyalist planetary troops. Ground troops included stormtroopers outfitted with customized gear, environment-adapted armor, heavier carbines, and shock attachments for urban pacification. Planetary garrisons under his banner trained local conscripts and drilled them with old Imperial doctrine, blending regular infantry with rapid response riot squads and heavy walkers for suppression. Zinj's most infamous infantry were the Raptors, an elite commando unit specializing in infiltration, demolition, and assassination. Clad in blackened stormtrooper armor with sensor-dampening plating, Raptor squads deployed ahead of major offensives, targeting shield arrays, command bunkers, and supply lines. Thrawn's Imperial Fleet. In 9 ABY, Grand Admiral Thrawn launched a major Imperial offensive against the New Republic, commanding both space fleets and a rebuilt ground force drawn from surviving stormtroopers and rapid-grown Spartai clones. His infantry combined seasoned stormtroopers with freshly cloned soldiers accelerated through Spartai cylinders. Units were fielded quickly, outfitted in standard Imperial armor, and supported by cloned officers trained for operational cohesion. These troops deployed in full regiments within days of activation. On the ground, Thrawn's forces relied on armor-backed advances. AT-ATs, AT-STs, and repulsor lift tanks formed the backbone of mechanized assaults. At Sluis Van and Tungarin, Imperial infantry pushed through New Republic defenses using jammers, orbital fire, and coordinated encirclement. The First Order. Formed in secret by Imperial loyalists who fled into the unknown regions, the First Order spent decades building a next-generation military. By 34 BBY, their army emerged fully formed, disciplined, brutal, and fanatically loyal to Supreme Leader Snoke. First Order ground troops were dominated by stormtroopers trained from childhood. Unlike Imperial recruits, these soldiers were kidnapped young, psychologically conditioned, and drilled relentlessly to eliminate hesitation. Standard troopers wore updated white armor with angular plating, carrying F-11D blaster rifles and stun batons. Riot control units wielded shield gauntlets and electro staffs, and flame troopers and heavy gunners deployed in suppression teams. The Resistance. The Resistance was a lean, volunteer-driven paramilitary force founded by General Leia Organa during the Cold War. Though dismissed by the New Republic Senate, Leia's movement quietly recruited war veterans, former rebels, and independent militias viewed the First Order as a rising threat. Resistance ground forces relied on small commando teams, planetary allies, and adaptable fighters. Their kit varied. Some wore scavenged rebel gear, others customized armor for stealth or survival. Most carried standard-issue EL-16 HFE blaster rifles or pistols, and some units fielded heavier weapons repurposed from surplus New Republic stocks. Resistance troops fought with hit-and-run tactics, sabotage, and infiltration. Though outnumbered, they made up for it with the same guerrilla mindset that had once toppled an empire. Acolytes of the Beyond. The Acolytes of the Beyond were a radical Sith-worshipping cult obsessed with Darth Vader and the dark side. The Acolytes carried out coordinated attacks on New Republic facilities and civilian targets. Armed with blasters, makeshift explosives, and stolen relics, they fought as fanatical zealots. More cults than militia, but deadly in their conviction. In some encounters, they wore masks resembling Sith Lords and believed death in battle would reunite them with Vader in the afterlife. Hapan Royal Guard and Fleet. The Hapes Consortium fielded one of the most advanced regional militaries in the galaxy, fiercely independent, sleekly equipped, and loyal only to the Queen Mother. Its naval arm was anchored by Hapan battle dragons, disc-shaped capital ships with rotating gun arrays, and Nova-class cruisers. On the ground, the Hapan Royal Guard served as palace protectors and ceremonial troops, but they were no mere decoration. Armed with stun halberds, blaster pistols, and layered armor, they doubled as battlefield-ready units when deployed to defend royal interests. Nagai Invaders. The Nagai were a humanoid warrior culture from a satellite galaxy who arrived in the aftermath of the Galactic Civil War. Initially operating as an invasion force, Nagai commanders launched precision strikes across the Outer Rim, targeting weakened rebel and imperial positions. Nagai troops moved in close-knit fire teams, relying on fast engagements and coordinated ambushes. On battlegrounds like Zeltros and Endor, they used terrain to their advantage, slipping through forests and ruins to hit patrols and secure objectives. Toph Invaders. The Toph were an extragalactic species who entered the galaxy during the Nagai-Toph War, seeking to conquer systems already destabilized by civil war. They brought with them a well-armed invasion force backed by a monarchy-driven military hierarchy. Infantry units advanced in heavy formations, supported by assault troops deployed from Toph warships. These forces often relied on brute force tactics, breaching city defenses and overpowering resistance through sheer volume. The Galactic Alliance. When the Yuuzhan Vong invaded in 25 ABY, New Republic ground and naval forces mobilized first, deploying human and alien troops from across the galaxy to defend garrisons, cityscapes, and key systems along the Outer Rim. New Republic soldiers used standard armor, blaster rifles, and repulsor lift vehicles, often fighting beside Jedi commanders. Walkers and artillery teams supported counterattacks, but the unfamiliarity of Vong biotech made every engagement costly. Alliance Marines. The Galactic Alliance Marines served as shipboard infantry and rapid response units aboard capital ships during the Galactic Alliance era. Often referred to as Space Marines, they operated under naval command during crises, including Commander Gavin Darklighter by 43 ABY. Marine units were stationed across GA warships, stations, and key installations. The Marines were tasked with intercepting sabotage teams, defending starships from boarding attempts, and securing fleet corridors during large-scale engagements, acting as the Navy's first and last line of interior defense. Noghri Freedom Fighters. The Noghri were compact but deadly warriors known for their speed, stealth, and unshakable loyalty. Originally manipulated by the Empire, they later aligned with the New Republic after discovering Palpatine's betrayal, swearing fealty to Leia Organa Solo as the daughter of Vader. Though small in number, Noghri fighters became elite bodyguards, scouts, and assassins for the New Republic and later the Galactic Alliance. They excelled in infiltration and close-quarters combat. Many fought during the Yuuzhan Vong War, serving as personal protectors or Black Ops agents behind enemy lines. Shamed Ones. The Shamed Ones were outcasts of Yuuzhan Vong society, members of the worker caste who had failed to bond with living implants or biotechnology. They were often forced to undertake dangerous or downright suicidal tasks to protect the warrior class. They performed the most menial and hazardous tasks in Vong society, from servitor labor to thrall duties, and were shunned by all other castes. Chiss Ascendancy. The Chiss Defense Force was the standing military of the Chiss Ascendancy, an isolationist power in the unknown regions. Alongside its disciplined navy, The CDF fielded shock troopers and planetary defense units trained for rapid deployment. Chiss ground troops wore dark armored uniforms with high-vis sensor visors suited for low-light environments. Standard kit included blaster carbines, sidearms, and concussion grenades used in tight formations during boarding actions and corridor defense. Yuuzhan Vong Warrior Caste. The warrior caste formed the backbone of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. From youth, these warriors were conditioned to become fearless shock troops of the true way. In battle, they wore living Vondun crab armor, bioshells that could deflect blaster bolts and resist lightsabers. Standard kit included amphistaffs, thudbugs, and razor-sharp knives. Some wielded unique biotech weapons adapted to personal combat styles or rank. Warrior squads deployed in disciplined waves, coordinated by subalterns or warmasters. Their tactics emphasized frontal assault, personal glory, and ritualized close-quarters combat, where death was preferred over surrender. Galactic Alliance remnants. After the Sith Imperial War shattered the Galactic Alliance, a remnant force under Admiral Gar Stasi carried on the fight against Darth Krayt's empire. Though vastly outnumbered, the Alliance remnant maintained a navy and a small contingent of loyal ground troops drawn from surviving planetary units. Operating from hidden bases, they carried out raids, supported resistance cells, and defended key holdouts across the galaxy. Their gear varied by unit, but most carried standard issue blaster rifles and field armor marked with Alliance insignia. The Remnant's infantry represented a continuation of the rebel military tradition, organic soldiers fighting uphill, trying to keep the flame of democracy alive. Imperial Knights. The Imperial Knights were Force-sensitive warriors sworn not to the Jedi, but to Emperor Rowan Fel of the Fel Empire. Unlike Sith or Jedi, they followed a strict code of loyalty to the light side and to their sovereign, viewing the Emperor as the embodiment of order, not divinity. Clad in crimson armor, the Knights trained rigorously in both lightsaber combat and battlefield command. They operated in pairs or strike teams, often embedded with Fel loyalist troops during raids or defensive actions. Imperial Knights led by example, countering Sith Lords and shielding the Emperor from assassins. The Fel Empire. The stormtroopers of the Fel Empire were elite soldiers loyal to Emperor Rowan Fel, distinct from the Sith-controlled empire that overthrew him. Many served alongside Imperial Knights, forming mixed force squads that executed raids, defended strongholds, or escorted high-value personnel. Training emphasized unit cohesion, loyalty to the Fel dynasty, and adaptability in long-term campaigns against Sith Imperial forces. One Sith. Darth Krayt's One Sith transformed from a hidden order into a galactic regime. After decades of secrecy, they struck in 130 ABY, toppling Emperor Rowan Fel and rebranding the Fel Empire as a new Sith Empire under Krayt's rule. The Sith military was composed of fanatical Sith lords and acolytes backed by red-armored Sith troopers. Unlike the rule of two Sith, the One Sith trained hundreds of dark side warriors, many serving as frontline commanders or shock troops. These forces overwhelmed both the Galactic Alliance remnant and Fel loyalist factions in early campaigns. On the battlefield, Sith units used intimidation, lightsaber combat, and force powers in tandem with traditional infantry and mechanized divisions, establishing brutal control over key worlds like Coruscant and Ossus. The Knights of Ren. The Knights of Ren were a mysterious band of dark-side warriors who followed Kylo Ren as their master during the rise of the First Order. Clad in black armor and helmets, each knight wielded a distinct melee or ranged weapon, axes, clubs, blasters, infused with brutality and combat efficiency. Though not Sith, the Knights tapped into the dark side through instinct and aggression rather than structured training. They operated as a strike team, executing assassinations, raids, and force-backed terror missions across the galaxy's fringes. The Sith Eternal Army. Hidden deep on Exegol, the Sith Eternal Cult spent decades forging a massive secret army in service of the resurrected Emperor Palpatine. This force, known as the Final Order, included legions of crimson-plated Sith troopers, elite soldiers named after ancient Sith lords, organized into highly disciplined battalions. Alongside them stood jetpack assault units and shadowy sovereign protectors whose black and red armor recalled the Emperor's former guards. Trained in absolute loyalty and indoctrinated in Sith ideology, these troops were bred for a single purpose: galactic conquest under the Sith. Anyways guys, that's it for today's list video, and make sure you let us know what your favorite organic trooper type is in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.